Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Harlem Masterclass series. And today, you got me, Sir J.T. Thompson, the original creator and executive producer of the first ever Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards show that broadcast in national syndication and on BET Network in the 1990s. And of course, the CEO and the founder of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame is pleased to be partnering right now with New Heritage Theater Group, celebrating the 60th anniversary, and also for the Harlem Masterclass series. We look forward to sharing some good information with you about the making of a hip hop music mogul, executive, or entrepreneur. These things are very important right now, especially in hip hop, as we now transition from not just music, but also to brands and redeveloping our communities. So, without further ado, let me get into a little bit of this story about myself. My name is JT Thompson, as I said. I'm a Brooklyn-born guy, born in Brooklyn, raised in Hollis, Queens, also living with my grandparents on 208th Street. So you can imagine around one block is Ed Lover. On the corner with me is old school hip hop group, Black Rock and Ron, or Rocket Ron. And then his brother lived on my block. And then we also had on 25th, you had Run DMC, Jam Master Jay. Then if you went to Jackson High a few blocks up and you went around the corner to Linden Boulevard, you went up and Riverside Drive. What's so unique about those experiences that when I moved with my mother in Harlem, I ended up meeting my grandfather from Queens' brother. His name was Carl Fry. Well, Carl Fry played with Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, Benny Carter, Benny Goodman, and some of the other greats from the Harlem Renaissance and music that we fathom today here in the history and the legacy of Harlem. So that experience of meeting him, I was just a kid now, but just understanding that now, fast forwarding now, where I'm sitting at right now in the New Heritage Theater Group offices, surrounded by the legacy of Harlem. And if you think about the legacy of Harlem and you fast forward to where we are right now, the Hip Hop Hall of Fame is really standing on the foundation of those who literally came before us. So ended up moving from Harlem. Next thing you know, I'm in South Central LA. My mom moved to LA. So we go from that era of where there was Shaft, right, to now being around Bloods and Crips and a whole different type of element, right? So the unique situation about being in Los Angeles that my mom, she moved like 10 times, right? Whether it's relationships, jobs, or whatever the case is. So I lived on the West Side. Then I moved to Watts. Then I moved to South Central, and then I moved further east to the East Side. So I had a chance to experience all the various communities and grew up meeting a lot of young people at that time, which would serve me later on in life, as you'll find out. So after growing up in that situation, I was a two-sport star at Manual Arts High School. I played football, I played basketball. We were beginning of championships there. We couldn't wait to get Six Flags like the legendary Crenshaw High you might hear about. So Manual Arts toilets, we in the building, right? So after high school, I ended up going to the military. I got a chance to travel around the world. I also build up the discipline and the things that I needed in my personal life. And then the next thing you know, I had a full scholarship waiting on me going Division I. My first stop was Northwestern State, which was in Louisiana. And I was down that way with Joe Dumars, who was at McNeese, got a chance to stay with his family. And a whole dynamic of that situation in Louisiana was incredible, from Grambling to Southern, all the way, then you talked about all the way to LSU. And big shout out to Coach Dale. A lot of them folks recruited me out there. But I went to Northwestern State, then ended up moving into San Diego State. So the unique situation about that is when you find yourself in college and you're still trying to shape who you are and who you want to be, who would have known at that time that I was actually into business, looking forward to being in real estate, looking forward to doing an investment. And then the next thing you know, I was reading Black Enterprise magazine. So I looked one day in Black Enterprise magazine and I seen what Percy Sutton was doing when he actually bought the Apollo Theater. Who would have known that he set up Apollo Theater Records, Apollo Theater Productions, Apollo Theater Publishing? He had a whole flow chart in Black Enterprise. And I looked at that flow chart and said, man, I need to build a company like that. Who would have known that the folks that were behind that I would meet later on in life? But we'll get into that a little bit later. Shout out to Boza Rivers, who come to find out he was running that record label back then. So as we move on a little bit further, I ended up playing on the junior national team for the USA team. So believe it or not, I actually played ball in Moscow, Russia, and in Ukraine, where the war is going on, in Kiev. I've been in that beautiful city before all this stuff started. I played in the Baltics against Sharonas Marciulionis, who ended up playing for the Golden State Warriors. And in Ukraine, it was a couple of other folks who ended up playing with the Atlanta Hawks and some other pro players. Also ended up playing in Germany, ended up playing in quite a few other areas. So it was very unique at that time, right? So, pardon the interruption on the phone piece. So the very next thing we ended up doing was I realized while traveling throughout those areas, we also went to Yugoslavia, which is now Bosnia and Serbia, and some of the other countries in that area traveling. And then in the military travel, I thought we grew up poor when I was, whether you was in Harlem, whether you're South Central LA, or wherever you are. When you get a chance to travel around the world and you see real poor people, you realize that we weren't really as poor as we thought we were. Because in American standards, it's higher standards than a lot of other different countries at that time, especially. But then it gives you a different worldview about who you are as a person and the things that you want to achieve in life. So that helped me out tremendously. Then the next thing you know, while I was traveling, I was taking the hip hop mixtapes with me. I was taking the Kiss FM, rapper, ground with a DJ Red Alert, and also took the Rap Attack tapes from WBLS. So yeah, Kiss FM, WBLS, they did the mix shows. So I carried those tapes wherever I went. So hip hop was already a part of me, and I was already a part of hip hop. And I just want you to understand that when you become an ambassador or a connoisseur of your own culture, you learn to get respect in a whole different light about yourself and your history. You want to learn more. So I'm going to fast forward right now to the hip hop Fight the Power era. And then you see how the birth of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame really came into fruition. So while in college, hip hop is the golden era of hip hop. Things was rolling. Run DMC kicking over statues. EPMD. You had Eazy-E, NWA coming out on the West. You had Luke and them out in the South. So the music was starting to come out in different ways. You had Too Short coming out the Bay Area. And so as hip hop started to take shape, the next evolution was how do we be down, right? How do we get down? So it happened, the Rodney King situation in Los Angeles. So what we learned at the Rodney King situation is, in spite of the videotape, the police were not held accountable at that time, right? And we still have some of those same issues. If you fast forward 20, 30 years later, here we are, we're still having some of the same conversations that we had back then. But the unique piece about it is that I remember April 29th, 1992, the day of that verdict. I was at First AME Church. I was there with city leaders, community leaders, religious leaders, business leaders, as I was already involved in the community from a hip hop perspective, looking for ways to how we can make a difference in our communities, right? So at that particular time, it was so tense. The smoke started billowing, the people was getting antsy on the inside. So then we found ourselves actually helping now people to escape, people to get home, elderly. Next thing you know, the stuff started happening in the streets, the smoke started billowing, and LA was on fire. And so later that night, I found myself in unique situations with other members of the clergy, other members of the community, where we were holding arms, keeping gang members from the police at that particular time. I remember this. This was by First AME Church. I think it was on Adams Boulevard at that time. And it was so unique because I didn't realize now till we flash back now how intense it was, with guns drawn, rocks on the other side, and seeing how things were. And we were calling for peace on both sides. And so I'm trying to give you an understanding how the intense moment with smoke brewing, fires burning, all these things happening. Then the next thing you know, I found myself in front of the national TV cameras as Chip Murray, the pastor of First AME. He was so busy, He looked at a young named Reverend Flowers, and he looked at me and said, "You guys go out there and talk to the press." So one of the first faces you seen at that time on national television was ours. And we were calling for calm and calling for peace, but also calling for justice. I say that to say that one thing about being in hip hop and one thing about being a hip hop music mogul, executive, entrepreneur, whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is you're aspiring to be, it also comes with responsibility and responsibility for your community. So I wanted to make sure that as I broke that down to you, let me give you an idea of some of the things we actually did at that time. So while in the community and working in those streets at that time, the mayor of Los Angeles, her name is Karen Bass. Karen Bass was one of those community organizers with us. We had so many other young people who were standing up. I created the Representatives of Young African American Leaders Alliance. It's the Royal Alliance. So what we did is we had all the high school leaders and presidents. We had all the junior colleges, Black student unions. We had all the Black student unions from USC, UCLA, and all the rest. And we formed a partnership together to figure out ways that we can empower our community and empower ourselves as youth. We even flew in Sister Soldier for an event at UCLA, and that became a catalyst for a movement that we did in the streets. So the Watts Gang Truce was already flourishing. Big shout out to Daoud Sherrills, Dwayne Holmes, Akila Sherrills. That was Grape Street and the Nickerson Gardens. And I'm calling these names to you because you already know what you're hearing with Kendrick Lamar and all these other things. We did this. We lived this. So when we speak now, we speak in truth to power, but we also talking to the young people from experience from where they're at and where they're trying to go. So that gang truce that came in Watts, I remember I told you my mother moved 10 times in LA. I was able to, with the Royal Alliance, to then go to all those different communities and bring a lot of those gang leaders together at a meeting. And at that particular meeting, shout out to Gerald Wicks, we use his house, not my house. But when I tell the story, I said it was at our house. That's what we did. We came out of that with the LA Gang Truce Alliance, which you've seen in the movie Straight Outta Compton with the red rag and the blue rag. And you also seen in the movie Redemption with Jamie Foxx. All that rare footage was some of the events that we were putting on at that time. Not only did we stop there, though, we served like 21 straight days. We stood up to clean the streets with actor Edward James Olmos. We set up food banks. We helped raise funds for displaced residents. It was very chaotic, but we had to be structured at that point. So the next thing you know, the Royal Alliance moved forward with the LA Gang Truce Alliance. I moved with the ministers, and we created, with the Black contractors, the United Minority Contractors Association. So shout out to Arnon and some of the gentlemen I was with who helped put that together to make sure that African Americans had an opportunity to be a part of the redevelopment and the rebuilding of LA. But who would have known when you brought all those folks together from a bond level and a building experience level, we didn't have the capacity to build on a level that we needed to build. So there needed to be training and modification. And so utilizing the United Minority Contractors Association, we took gang members from all over the city and brought them together to work to help rebuild the Sears store in Hollywood. Now, building that Sears store in Hollywood was so unique because these folks had no job training, but yet it was very successful, which became the foundation of what we call the community build programs, the construction programs that are featured all around the country. Shout out to Brenda Shockley, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the godmother, and everybody out there who was very involved at that particular point. So I'm trying to give you an idea that hip hop not only is about the music, it's also about the community. Being an executive and being a mogul and all those things comes with responsibility. So we didn't know it at the time. We were just young in our 20s. So the very next thing you know, here it is. We took the contractors and those that we had, we found a job site that had no minorities on it. We shut down the first job site post LA riots and got the first contract for the builders to build in the city. As became the catalyst for building more projects and getting minorities involved in the process and creating jobs and economic opportunity. So at that point, I joined the LA Rebuild LA organizational board, the advisory board, pushing for public and private partnerships. By then, Mayor Tom Bradley and, like I said, Congresswoman Maxine Waters and others, the then to be elected President Bill Clinton came down. He played basketball with some of our members. And the relationship began to courting how we can empower the local communities. And he selected 2 members from our group for the 50 Faces of Hope, which was Charles Rachel and Leon Gillette. Big shout out to them. These are real life stories of real life people who did real life things. They were part of the LA Gang Truce Alliance. They came from the Pueblos, Fiduce, Broadways, all the way down. So as you can see, the truce expanded from Watts really throughout most of the city at that time. So we later gifted President Bill Clinton an award from the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, an appreciation award presented at the White House. So we pushed for public and private partnerships at that time, which later became what they called empowerment zones back then. Today, they call them opportunity zones. Now, the issue with the whole purpose of the empowerment zones, if you look at what happened in Harlem with the big development that happened in Harlem, same thing in LA and other areas, it's great to have the big development, but what we wanted was to make sure that some of our mom and pops and other stores had an opportunity to be a part of the upgrades and the progress, not just the big box stores, right, who got the tax credits. So that's a work in progress that we need to think about right now moving forward as a hip hop community. So then I pursued doing concerts and fundraisers and live events and peace summits and all the rest. I worked with Yo-Yo, Lighter Shade of Brown, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, many more on the West Coast as well. I worked on an event with Tupac Shakur, rest in peace. We did a rally to free Geronimo Pratt and Lamar Pork, and that was a chance for us to get to know each other really well. This was pre-death row, so you can get to understand that we had a chance to actually utilize each other and how we build each other. And so now you can understand later in life when Tupac talked about, I may not be the mind or the one that make the change, but I might spark the mind. Big respect and love for that. Spike Lee dropped Malcolm X at that time and encouraged me personally also to keep pushing the line in what we were doing because X was a great movie at that time. So as I move and transition to how the Hip Hop Hall of Fame was created out of all of this, I want you to understand that the LA Times called us heroes, right? Other people called us heroes and all that. No, we just really cared about community. And we cared about our past, our present, and we also care about the future, even today. So we were honored by a Congressional Black Caucus, local city, state, county politicians, and all the rest. And hip hop had to stand up at that time for its leadership role. This is one of those stories that's never been told. You'll read about all the details in our book coming out about LA Gang Troops and about the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. But I wanted to give you an idea that these are real stories that happened that haven't been in any movies. No one ever really talked about, but the work that was put in paved the way for a lot of what we have today. So in the midst of all that, I ended up moving my family to the Bay Area, right? Shout out to my girl, Juanita Dove Williams, straight up of Dove Entertainment, my partner for over 30 years. Let me tell you, so, meeting from San Diego State, we was doing parties and all that other type of stuff. She ended up coming to LA, we hooked up. Next thing you know, we doing this other stuff. We out here doing, like I said, the LA Gang Troops. We holding candlelight vigils in front of KJLH. Big shout out to Stevie Wonder, who allowed us to do that, to free the LA4 and all the rest. All the work that was done was important. But we moved to the Bay to actually raise the family. And the next thing you know, here it is now. I'm in the Bay now. Y'all got to figure this out. I am now promoting E40, Too Short, Master P, and networking at Funky Fat Graphics. In case you don't know, you used to remember all those album covers you've seen that was glistening with the diamonds and all these other things. Funky Fat was at the forefront of all of that. They did everybody's stuff out in the Bay Area. So shout out to the whole Bay, CMG, Conscious Daughters, Delinquents, Rapping Forte, the whole Filmo, HP, the Sucker Free, Mac Mall, Ray Love, the Who Riders, my group, my squad, the whole folks on the East Oakland, Deep East Oakland, to the West, to the North Oakland, to the North, to the No-No, Bush Ride, and big shout out even to those folks over in Alameda. One love to you, right? And then, of course, to Hayward, B-Town, Berkeley, what's up? Santa Rosa. I'm trying to give everybody some love on that, right? Because the Bay Area really taught me the independent music game. Welcome to your masterclass. So, you really have to understand and learn the rap music game from real players who sold music out the trunk. Now, most artists had record deals back in the day, but they didn't have no money, y'all. They received like a 10 to 15% royalty. For those of you who don't know what that means, 10 to 15% off of every dollar royalty after all the expenses is paid. That means the money they got up front to produce their record, to go for touring, take care of self-care, music, marketing, touring, air, hotel, their own crews had to be recouped first before they even seen any of that 10 to 15%. And quite frankly, none of that really happened back then. So the independent artists, they found a way to maneuver in the midst of the system, which is still relevant today. And I'm hoping you're catching this game. So the independent artists produce their own music, chose to get distribution only deals, or PND, promo and promo marketing and distribution deals, right? So therefore, their overhead was low, their recoupment was basically non-existent, and sold out the trunk directly. So, excuse me. So take it like this: if you sold 100,000 albums at $10 out the trunk, you made a real $1 million in cash, yo. Now, in streams today, I heard my boy Snoop Dogg say, yo, I got 1 billion in streams. I get a check for 40,000. So the game has been flipped on its head, y'all. So it's up to us to make sure that we hip you to the game and show you how to survive the game right now, right? So if an independent label deal had an 80-20 split, like what Master P had with Priority, shout out Mike Sheremy and them over there, who was part of that whole piece with P and No Limit Records. So out of the $10 for the album sold, you got to keep 8, right? So it didn't matter. Master P did his own marketing and his promotion and touring. Reason why I know, because I was there, right? And so what I'm saying to you is I got a chance to witness a lot of game being put down by Master P, and I did soaked up that game like a sponge, as E40 say, and I marinated on a little bit. And then later I ended up creating a Hip Hop Hall of Fame label as well. And we put out the Who Riders Corner Store album. Look it up, Bayside, Tower Records, a slamming album. But the point is, it was the basis for showing that we have to be diverse in what we do. You seen from community, you seen to real estate in a minute, you also seen to music and how everything ties in together. So I had already created the Hip Hop Hall of Fame concept already in my mind. When I did the Royal Alliance, it morphed into the Hip Hop Hall of Fame in May of '92. So the idea was always created and registered, and was trying to figure out how to actually bring it to life, right? There was no money for youth programs back then. Hip Hop Hall of Fame award show, I ended up doing it as a production with my partner, like I said, Juanita Dub Williams of Dub Entertainment. We ended up watching what Byron Allen did. Byron Allen right now is doing this thing. But back then, when I went to do my syndication piece, I had my kids also behind me in a playpen and running around as I was actually getting those TV station deals done as well until I got a syndicator. So shout out to Byron Allen for sharing the game. But then also Jet Magazine had a show. And Jet Magazine always put out in the magazine where you could watch their show in what cities. So then I basically mimicked that list to get my own station list and built upon that and added stations to it. So then therefore we can be a player in that particular space, right? So while I was in the Bay Area, Funky Fat Graphics designed the first ever Hip Hop Hall of Fame award show piece. They did the Hollywood Awards piece we did, and they also did the Hip Hop Honors piece, which we also created, y'all, that y'all already know what's up with the Hip Hop Honors. Y'all have to read about the story in the book. But the fact of the matter is, we created those things at that time to actually be coming on the air over time. And some of these things are now getting ready to come back. So right from there, we got a syndication deal, like I said, in '95. Got the BET cable network deal. So now we're like an independent TV producer doing stuff on a national level. So lo and behold, I got to get back home to New York City. Where am I going? I'm going back to Harlem. Straight up, Harlem Masterclass. We put together the Hip Hop Hall of Fame award show, and we taped it at the Victoria Theater on 125th Street. We were going to the Apollo Theater. Shout out to Charlotte Sutton and everybody, but we ended up at the Victoria Theater, and we actually got it in the can and got it able to be broadcast. So I came back home and got that show done. So as you can tell, at that time, nobody was really thinking about making old school hip hop cool and preserving it. We the ones that made old school hip hop cool and started a whole preservation piece. We inducted Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, I think it was Africa Bambaataa, Zulu Nation back then, Eazy-E, who had passed away AIDS, and a few others. And we had like Raven Simone perform. We had DOS Effects, PMD perform. We had a whole bunch of performances, man. So it was really cool. The funky youngsters back then. And so, and we also had the brothers from Interscope, Big Bub and them, man, they got busy as well. I'm trying to let you see how we bridge the gap from the East to the West in the middle of the fake East Coast, West Coast feud that spurred the violence that ended up taking the lives of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. I had to give a moment of silence for that. So having been face to face with Puffy, we call him Puffy back then, of course, and then Suge Knight and others. I remember Suge Knight when we were doing the community work we were talking about. There was a young little girl shot on 52nd Street off of Hoover. Hoover and, I think it was Hoover and 52nd Street. We would set up funds at the local bank, a black bank, I think it was Broadway at the time. We set up funds at the bank for people who want to contribute money to help the kids' families, right? We didn't touch the money. We just set up the accounts and let the family know this is going to be for them, right? So while I was in there, lo and behold, I said, hey, have you two met? And next thing you know, I'm meeting Suge Knight. He drove a van at that time, yo. And this was like, he was like, yo, man, we getting ready to start this. We doing this, blah, 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 blah. We getting ready to launch some stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. It's all good. You never know, get a chance to, do some business together, whatever the case is. But I was really pro-community. I wasn't just music. I'm really about community, music, entertainment, and how it benefits and sustains our community. That's what we're about. So what happened at that time, and the greatest lesson we could take away, is that throughout that media hype frenzy, the only ones that benefited was the media companies, the magazines, the TV networks, corporate folks, and a few others that profited from the industry itself. But we failed to protect our culture. And I'm going to talk about protecting our culture and protecting your role in it and protecting your culture so that you would understand the difference of having a culture and allowing others to come in and make money with us and not destroying our culture simultaneously. That's part later on in the masterclass. So the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, we probably lost $30-40 million at that time because Hip Hop Hall of Fame was not on the TV shows anymore. We couldn't get back on the air because the brands we had the Kool-Aid Man. He busted in the wall to come support us, and he ran out another wall, leaving us after all this violent stuff. And same thing goes for Kraft Macaroni and Cheese. We had the Sprite commercial. Shout out to Red Alert, Mr. Magic, KRS-One, MC Shan. That commercial was fire that we did back then. Daryl Cobbin, big love to you, man. I heard that you out there at Visa card now. Big love and respect. So all that transpired, and then all that was gone, just like that, right? And so we have to do a better job of protecting our culture and sustaining ourselves in the midst of what we create. So the good thing about it is we had to morph into doing other things, as you known us to do, because we really about that like that. So next thing you know, we started co-producing and working on the McDonald's NBC Heritage Bowl Black College Football Championship in Atlanta, doing the performances. Big shout out to CeeLo, the Goody Mob, and all other folks we had out there in ATL. Man, it just felt good to bridge that gaps. So we did that on NBC and the halftime show and all that other stuff. Then the next thing you know, we co-produced the Divine Nine National Step Show Championships, also in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome. Big shout out to Lil' Kim. My girl came through for us. We had Nivea, Baby, and Manny Fresh, the big timers. They were doing it right there. And then we also had a host of Brian Cameron, who's a big Atlanta radio DJ, and many more performances. And of course, we had the fraternities and the sororities, the AKs, the Deltas, and the Sigmas, and the Qs, and the Kappas. And woo, it was just what a show, y'all. So what I'm saying to you, those are the type of things we had to do to keep our brand alive. Next thing you know, we also worked on the Black College Battle of the Bands shows also. And so we were doing everything in our power, like I said, to keep the Hip Hop Hall of Fame brand alive and to keep working till we can get back on the TV side. So as I fast forward from that moment, with all the leaving off a whole lot of things that happened in between, we were fortunate enough to bring the TV show back in the 2010s. We produced the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Award show in a dry run just to get it back in the focus to see where we were on Soul of the South Cable Network in 2015. It was hosted by Roxanne Shante. Rest in peace to Biz Markie, the big fella. He come through and kept everybody vibing. We inducted The Sequence, Treacherous 3, Ralph McDaniel from Video Music Box, Wild Style, the movie, Chief Rocker, Busy Bee, Cornbread, one of the original graffiti artists, the N-Twins, the first B-Boys, and many others, y'all. I just wanted to give you an idea to let you know. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame is about that, but we like to do it and do it right, And then you fast forward to where we are right now, to the present. We are poised right now with be fortunate even to be here, to have the actual Hip Hop Hall of Fame plus museum with a 5-star hotel, a 300-unit residential development complex, retail shopping mall, and an entertainment venue to be built in Penn Station. We're in the middle of a joint venture. We've been quiet on this now for about 5 years. I couldn't say nothing, but I'm saying it now in the masterclass to let everybody know this project's already been in the works. I know you heard about other hip hop museums being built. We're helping folks also in Houston and Minneapolis and Atlanta and other folks who are building hip hop museums, but there'll only be one hip hop Hall of Fame in the whole world. And that's the Hip Hop Hall of Fame that we created with the original Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards TV show, induction ceremony and concert. So I say that to say we have to be collective in preserving all of our history collectively together and work together as one to actually become a sustainable entity ourselves even. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame is a chartered 501c3 nonprofit museum and educational institution. So that that project at Penn Station is now set to potentially, designed by SOM Architects, by the way. Big shout out to you guys. You guys do all the big stuff in New York. That 50-story tower project and spread out project is probably going to break ground late 26 or 27, but it won't open till at least 2030. So rather than wait for all that to happen, we also scaled it down, and we're now getting ready to open up the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Cafe and Museum that also have a TV and a film studio. First one to open in 2025 in Harlem. Working on the details right now. Already have the location. If we could just get the deal finalized, everybody, you'll be surprised about what we have from a conceptual speaking. The cafe doubles as a culinary school. The TV and the film study doubles as a STEAM education and multimedia and tech training facility. So while we're doing what we're doing live events, while we're producing the shows, while we're bringing content, while folks are learning about hip hop culture, the preservation and AR, VR experiences, and eating good food and buying some quality merchandise, it is also a way for us to bring the culture together, because some of that programming will be done also by the Harlem Arts Alliance, as well as New Heritage Theater Group, and supporting community programming who don't have access without super expensive access to venues. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame wants to help fill that void. Also, we're launching the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Metaverse in 2025. So a whole lot of things coming up shortly. And we've also launched my company, the Hip Hop Economic Development LLC. This will include a Hip Hop Economic Development Conference in 2025. And the mission is to be the creatives and the builders in our communities over the next 2 decades. And so I wanted to share that with you so you can get an understanding of how we got here. My other company, Renaissance Equity Ventures, we just completed the Emerging Real Estate Developers Program in New York City. Big shout out to LISC, Housing Preservation, New York Economic Development, Empire State Development, and all the partners involved to making sure that we get all the resources and access to capital to be able to build in affordable housing spaces, to not only for housing, but also commercial development, hospitality, entertainment, and those are the areas that we're moving into right now. We're launching initiatives coming up in 2025, which you'll get a chance to see and learn more about. And so now let's get into this music piece. Now that you know the background story and you can understand some of the trials and tribulations we went through, I must let you know, when we're putting on the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards, I want you to understand there were trials and tribulations. And then to be locked out after the Tupac and the Biggie situation, to be even here right now having this conversation with you is truly a God thing. It is truly a God shot. And we're truly thankful that he preserved us and kept everything in order for us to be successful for such a time as now, that we can now become a benefit to our community. So let's talk about this a little bit, right? So you got to learn the game. And when I say learn the game, I talked about the independent music game. I gave you a little taste of it, but I want you to understand, in the 80s, the music industry, Michael Jackson was king and all that. The music industry was not a friendly place because, quite frankly, hip hop didn't read contracts, y'all. A lot of people got taken advantage of. A lot of people made money, but it's not the first thing that's happened. That happened in the Motown days, before Motown even, all that. So I told you about my uncle, Carl Fry, who played with Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. That's my connection to Harlem. I'm locked in solid from a legacy standpoint. Now, remember, they played in places that they couldn't eat. They played in places where they couldn't sleep, and they couldn't own their own music or publish it. Think about that. They couldn't even own their own music and intellectual property. So why would we today, in today's generation, make that mistake? They were forced into a lot of situations because of Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, and all those other things. So here it is now. We have a sense of freedom, a certain level of freedom that we now need to maximize that and how we can empower one another. So I'm going to get into that too. So the 90s came, and before you know it, now we got platinum artists now. And the contracts are a little better for some. Some are getting the independent deals we talked about. And then you got labels getting deals. Like I told you about No Limit, but then there was Cash Money Music, right? Bad Boy got a deal. Death Row got a deal. There was a few other companies that got deals that now they have fledgling record labels with massive distribution, but they had big budget still. So technically they was independent, but they still had more money for marketing and promotion than the rest, right? So if you fast forward to present day, what do we have? We got streaming, right? So the record industry, by the way, to let you know, behind the scenes, they're looking at ways how they can get back to cash flow. You know, the record labels co-own some of the streaming networks. They might even, have the music pieces. They have the publishing pieces, but those things are not maximizing the profit that it should. And we don't have the A&R of cultivating artists, the emerging artists, the new artists, and bringing them through the process to fruition. And so we got young people out there like, man, I just got to get 100,000 views. I just got to get 300,000 views. I can get a deal. Well, you can do 300,000 views. Now, the question is, are those real viewers or are those bots, right? Are those real views? That's a whole nother conversation going on right now, which we're going to probably touch on a little bit later. But I'm saying to you, then it is, do you take a regular deal or are you taking an independent deal, or are you going to own your masters or not? Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, right? That's what independent artists did. That's what Death Row did. I don't know if Puff did that or not, but I know certain Master P did that. Certain people own their own masters. I even think Baby and them did that. I think Prince and Rap-A-Lot and them, same situation. I believe they own their stuff, right? So you get 1 billion streams, like I said, and you get a check for 40K, you're not really making no money, right? So that means we have to find a way for you to increase your earning potential. And that's what we're talking about here in this masterclass. So get your pen ready because we're going to be talking about a few things, okay? So the first thing is, I mentioned we must protect our culture. I am in this culture, like I said. My family and I is collected to Harlem, to Hollywood, from the USA to the Caribbean, to West Africa, to Ghana, to Egypt, and the whole diaspora, right? We stand on the four horsemen of Harlem. We also stand right now on the legacy of those now like Vosa Rivers and Lloyd Williams from the Greater Harlem Chamber, as well as New Heritage Theater Group, and quite a few others who I can mention right now. But I'm trying to let you understand, we're not that far away. We're like 3 generations removed from some of our folks who were in slavery. So when you have an outsider saying, oh, you should get over it, you shouldn't think about that. No, we're literally 3 or 4 generations away from that slave move and that Reconstruction move. So it's important that we understand how we got here and how we learn from what happened in the past and how we, utilizing hip hop, can now empower ourselves to not go back, right? So let's talk about that. The next evolution of this movement is the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. So now we got to utilize our culture to make money. And we should also be requiring that others that come into our culture and make money, that they should assist those in the culture to help make the culture and the communities move forward. Fair exchange is no robbery. It's important that we at the Hip Hop Hall of Fame also focus on bridging the gap between old school and new school, and also finding roles for seniors who have valuable experience that can also help us and help our young kids as well. That also becomes a reading literacy issue. It also becomes a financial literacy issue of what we're going to talk about in a moment. So I call the first 50 years of hip hop that everybody celebrated, right? That's our infancy, that's our adolescence, and our puberty. And we truly had growth and tribulation. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame, we're focused on the next 50. Shout out to all of our partners that are working part of the next 50 hip hop movement. So the next 50 years of Hip Hop Hall of Fame's vision is what we started in 1992. We're about socioeconomic empowerment and ownership. That means as a real estate owner, operator, and developer myself, the future is clear. Our responsibilities as grown men and women in hip hop is to establish a blueprint for future sustainability on our families, for schools, communities, healthcare, job training, the environment, all those things, and safety in our communities as well. That means initiatives in affordable housing, new initiatives in new business creation, job creation, access to capital, financial literacy, tech education, and access to jobs and employment in those spaces. You're not just competing with Americans anymore. You're competing with folks in India, China, Russia, the Far East. These are your new competitors now, not just the folks in the classroom. So we really have to make sure that we get it. We're also focusing on smart city development, which you're going to hear a lot more about from a hip hop perspective. Smart, sustainable cities, data management, power management, all those things are coming forth right now, and you're going to hear a lot more about it as we move forward. The main thing is we're creating generational wealth initiatives. So that's what it's about, right? So let's talk about the closing of this. The top 20 laws to setting yourself up for success as an artist, as an executive, producer, entrepreneur, whatever your career path is. So let's look at it. Number one, you got to know that you are truly gifted by God, number one. So you have talents and abilities that you need to actually discover within yourself. And hopefully can even be brought out by teachers or those around you who might see things that you don't see. Those skills also need to be developed. And then you need to practice those skills in real world, from internships and actually doing it in life. So that's number one. Rule number two, you got to believe in yourself. Biggie said, the sky is the limit, and you know that we keep on pressing on. Well, the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, we've had to press on. We did not get here. Put it this way. Folks would have loved, and I'll share this with you just so that you know. I've been in a situation, I won't mention the mogul's name, but the fact of the matter is, the mogul, we were so impressed to be in the room with the mogul, we gave him our business plan. That was a young, dumb mistake. So the mogul took a piece, he cherry picked and took a piece out the business plan and brought that thing to life. But that thing also ended up selling it for $100 million. But the thing about it is, the reason why it didn't work by itself was because it was part of a bigger ecosystem that was created. So when God gives you something, I'm letting you know, it fits together, right? So I want you to understand, you also will encounter people who will try to block you and other people who will try to bury you and leave you for dead, yo. So look at it this way. You didn't bury us. You planted us because we're a seed. And now we came up as a tree with a strong system, a strong foundation, who's going to give off branches and bless millions of people with positivity and economic development and empowerment and ownership, because that's what it was about from the beginning. So let's look at this. Number two, got to believe in yourself. You got to do a self-assessment. You got to believe in self-improvement. You got to believe in self-care. You got to believe in diet, exercise, and mental health. It is a real thing. And some of us even have to deal with it today. And if you can, avoid certain types of foods that will give you diabetes in the later years, young people. Just want to make sure that you get in this real game. Education. Education is important. You'd be like, well, I'm in school, man. I created a business. I did this. Okay, that's just great. But how you going to manage your money? How you going to know your legal situation? But also make sure the ones that you seek really are genuinely giving you sound advice and not trying to keep you into a box to serve them and their purposes. Now, some people have a method to the madness, that's okay, but you just need to make sure that you are progressing in your knowledge, right? And the last thing on that section is ask questions. You have to ask questions. If you don't know how something works or something operates, ask someone in the space. That's how you grow. That's how you believe in yourself, by getting more knowledge. So the next step, number three, don't believe the hype, as Public Enemy say. Don't believe the hype, right? So fear. You can't fear you becoming who you want to be. You cannot doubt you having the skill set if you put in the time and the work and the effort to finish what you're trying to finish. Yes, you must have faith. And of course, they said faith without works is dead, being alone. We get that. Faith, believing without works, execution is dead. We get that. You will encounter haters, right? Player haters from the Bay. That's where that originated from. You will encounter haters, right? But the question is, are you going to let someone's opinion of you be you, who you really are, or do you know who you are yourself internally? So I support the latter. You know who you are, And just because now there's social media where people who would never say a word or be in the closet somewhere got an opinion about everything, resist that. Those folks are not in your everyday life. Stay focused on the mission at hand. Let's talk about the other thing, IP theft. I gave you an example about the mogul I was telling you about. You have to read about it in the book. My whole point is that IP theft and protecting your assets, trademarks, copyrights, and the rest is very important. Can't overlook that. Obstacles. When you encounter obstacles, you cannot look and say, man, I just can't do this. I just can't do that. How do you think Elon Musk is successful? How do you think these tech guys are successful? They coined a phrase, fail to succeed. It sounds backwards, but the thing is, every time you fail, you learn what worked and what didn't work, then you improve on it, then you go again. That's how we're able to land that rocket right back onto the platform, which has never been done in our lifetime. Shout out to SpaceX. You don't hate the player, hate the game, right? So that come by trial and error. You're no different. Your life, your mission is your own rocket ship. So you must continually improve upon it, try what works, what didn't work, and get back out there. And the other thing is find solutions, right? But you can't take no for an answer. Now, it might be no, but Kathy Hughes, the sister who runs and owns Radio One, I heard her story and I sat back and was like, wow, because getting TV stations was similar to this. She went to 35 banks and she had a baby, yo. She went to 35 banks. Every one of them said no about her getting a radio station. She could have quit at 10, at 20. How about 25? How about 30? How about 35 and said, man, maybe this just ain't for me. But when she went out that next time to that 36 one, she got the money she needed to open the radio station and do what she did. And guess what? She's one of the biggest radio station owners in the country, Urban One Group. And then also you now have TV One and the other properties that they have from a digital standpoint. Imagine if she quit, where would she be, right? So number 4, preparation meets opportunity. That's what I heard Oprah say, right? But when your opportunity comes, what we're saying is you want to be ready. You want to know your material, know your job, have your business plan ready, have your financials in there ready, what you need, and be prepared to take action at that moment. So preparation meets opportunity, but you have to be prepared for that opportunity. Number 5, let's get into some basic principles to help you out in this. Goal setting, right? So from a goal setting standpoint, we have short-term, mid-term, long-term, and you can envision how this is going to work out. So from a short-term, we're talking right now to the next 6 months to the year. You assess your situation, you assess your skill set, what you want, you know how much money you want to make, you want to find a career that matches that, something that you like to do, and we're going to have that all laid out for you as well coming up soon. And then next thing you know, now you have an idea of what you want to do over the first year. And then the midterm, the midterm piece is from 2 years, from year 2 through year 5, where you're going to be in 5 years, right? And then on the long term is from 5 years to 10 years, where you're going to be after you complete that from the 5 to the 10 year. In other words, we got to keep your vision up high, your frequency high, your vibrational level high, so that you can aspire to be high, and then you can work in increments to get there. So once you have your goals, short term, midterm, long term, and you envisioning where you want to be every step of the way, now you got to have a plan. Number 6, the plan. So for every goal that you listed in the short term, the midterm, the long-term piece, you have to establish a plan. So for every goal you set, there is a plan. There are detailed steps for you to take to fulfill everything that you want to achieve in. And so the discipline, the focus comes to you. Put down the video game. You can't hang out with your friends this night. You got to do this. You got to do the work. In order for you to achieve the goal, you got to take those detailed steps. So let's take a look at it. So what are you talking about, Sir JT? So if you want to get a high school diploma, you got to go to school and got to take them classes, right? You got to pass that test. You got to pass that GED test, right? Oh, you want to get a college degree or a tech degree, right? Well, you got to go to them classes too. And you got to pass them classes, pass them tests to get your credentials and your degree. So if you want to go to trade or tech, like we said, you got to pass those classes as well. And you got to pass it and get certified so that you can make the money that you can make on the back end of that. Oh, you want to start a business? Okay, so let's look at those detailed steps, right? We're going to talk about structure and all that stuff later, but the main thing is you got to get permits, you got to get licenses, you got to get funding, you got to get structure, you got a whole many things you got to do. You got to do those steps for you to even open your door into your business. Now, being a small business entrepreneur, if you're doing fashion, selling t-shirts and all that, you might not need all those things right away, but you eventually will need those things, right? So if you want to be an artist and you want to do music, you can, if you can make music, producing your own, you 90% of the way. Other than that, you're gonna need a team. You're gonna need some producers who got beats. You're gonna need potentially a manager who has the ability to get you a deal and get you on tour. You're gonna need some accounting people. You're gonna need some legal people. You're gonna need some trademark and IP people. You're gonna need some tech people. You're gonna need some social media marketing and promo people. You are only as good as your team, because if you're trying to do everything by yourself, it's very difficult. Trust me, I live this. And the good thing is you learn over time to start bringing in the proper people in the team to be able to function on a very high level. And that's what we want to bring to you in this masterclass. So you want to be a professional athlete, right? I play ball. Everybody knows your situation. You know if you're working hard or if you're cheating, right? You know that, right? So if you want to be a professional athlete, you got to learn the game. You got to build your body. You got to practice, even when you're tired, plus school. So there's so much other things that go into it that you don't have time for the outside stuff to focus on your goal to get where you're trying to be. And see, that's the thing we have to learn as a culture, as a community, that you must learn to focus in spite of all the things that look fun like you're missing something. By the time you get to what you're trying to get to, you're going to find out you didn't miss anything. And my grandfather, rest in peace, to Donald, my namesake, Donald James Fry, and my grandmother, Ermine Fry, my nana from Queens. He always said, young man, you young enough that you can make a couple of mistakes and still bounce back. And that's what my message is to all of you out there. You can still bounce back. I don't care if you're 50. You can still bounce back, because most millionaires and billionaires don't really get that money to their 50s, right? So I just want to make sure that you know it is not too late for you either, right? So all these things that we're talking about, from your goal setting to your plan, they all have time frames of their own. You can't, on their own. You can't just say, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to go in here and get this tech thing, and then I'm going to be a millionaire. No, that tech thing says you might have to take a year and a half of training, get certified, get the first entry-level position. Now you're making $80,000, $90,000 a year. And then from that, you got to invest it correctly in the proper stocks, bonds, or whatever the case is. Make sure you got your insurance right, all that other stuff. And then utilize that to leverage. So how can I now scale this up to an opportunity that I can actually become a multimillionaire? Worst case scenario, you work there for 10 to 15 years, you manage your money, right? You're going to be a millionaire at that time frame, regardless, because you're already working and putting in the time where you are, and you can live a good and a comfortable life. That's what we're talking about right now. So, number 7, you got to take action. So you got the goals, you listed out the plan, you know the steps that you got to take. Now you got to take action. So dreams don't happen on their own, sitting in your mind or sitting up on a dream board, right? You got to actually get out in the field and make it happen. A moment ago, I told you, faith, belief without works, works is taking action, is dead, being alone, right? They go hand in hand. So now that you took the time to know where you want to be in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, and you know the steps to take, it's up to you to have the self-discipline to now take those steps and take that action. You want to be an artist, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be an executive, same thing. If you're an executive, they put you started off in the mailroom. You say, oh man, while I'm in the mailroom, I should be. Well, you learn the mailroom, you learn the departments, you learn, then you move up. Then you learn the next stage, then you learn the next stage, then you learn the next stage. And by the time you get to the top, you know everything about the whole level of the whole business operations. You know what that means? Nobody can play games with you. So when they say they're working, you know if they're working or not, because you did the work. That's what happens also about being an entrepreneur. We want to make sure that we pass this knowledge and pass this game down. So now you want to be a hip hop artist or executive or entrepreneur. First thing you got to do is set up a structure. Or you're going to have an LLC, an S Corp, or a corporation. You got to set up a structure. You got to have an operational plan with that, right? Next, you got to have a brand. You're an artist, you got to have a brand. What is your brand? Are you conscious? Are you socially active? Are you a gangster? I don't know what you are. Only you know. But you got to make sure whatever you choose as your brand is something that someone wants to buy. Everyone's not going to buy the gangster persona. Everyone's not going to buy this other persona. So you got to find something that fits your niche with your music and the style you want to be your authentic self. And that goes back to self-assessment, being your authentic self, right? So once you get a brand and you get everything set up, what you want to do in that brand, now you got to take care of that IP, make sure you get a trademark, copyright, all the things that you need to do, right? Then the next thing you got to have that online presence, right? That's that website or set up your platform, right? So as you set those things up, that now puts you in position to what we were talking about from a website perspective, it's informational. From a platform perspective, it becomes, I can now sell my music from here. I can now sell my fashion from here. I can now run a business from here and make money from here and get payments online, not just in your city, but across your state or across this country or around the world if your stuff is hot. Same with your music. Now, that's how you start taking control and ownership of your products, of your business, of your music, of your intellectual property, whatever it is and whatever game that you're in. And then whatever career that you have, if you're an accountant, if you're in the legal, or if you're in the management, or if you're in the whatever field that you're into, you still got to have that web presence, and you could utilize it to set up a platform for you to get new clients, new customers, new sales. We're talking ownership and operations here, everyone. Empowerment and ownership. That's what we're talking about in this masterclass. So after you got that rolling, you got to have your social media, right? And if you're not good at that yourself, there's AI programs that can help you, I know. But also if you had a promo and marketing team, or you was answering questions or teaching folks about the field that you're in, or your music, or your project, or your product, or your service, whatever that is, utilize the social media for that purpose to generate sales, to generate interest. Now, some people utilize the social media to create content for likes, trying to get money from the tech companies. For some people, it's successful, but it's like everyone's not going to be a rapper. Everyone's not going to be a football player or a basketball player. Everyone's not going to be a content creator. You can create content, but are you generating revenue? And you might have to grind that out as well. But I recommend you have something on the side to keep your bills paid, your house sustained, your family sustained while you're building your business. It is not easy, right? So content, getting right into that, number 12. You got to have content. You got to create that content, like I said, to bring in new customers, to increase sales, expand your brand, create news, be the news, however way you need to work it. That's that next level piece that you got to make sure you got right. So now we're going to get into something that's very important for everything that I just been sharing. You have to learn to build community, right? So the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, we know who our community is, but we're working to set up the actual physical space first to actually have our community in a place to actually interact with one another in the real world and in the digital world. That's where we're headed. So, but you as a brand and building a community, this is the same move that the independent record artists and the independent labels did, and the same move that good, smart business folks are doing right now to be self-sustainable. And for all you creatives out there making content, this also goes for you. So when you build your community, we're talking about, you got your followers, right? But then there's a thing called committed followers, right? And then there's that thing called super fans. Nipsey Hussle mastered that as well, right? Nipsey Hussle mastered a few things. Rest in peace to Neighborhood Nip, right? And shout out to everybody on 58 and 8th Ave, where I bought my first house, Hyde Park. What's up to y'all out there? And we represent also South Central. What's up from Harlem to Harlem? Y'all know how we get down, right? So the superfan piece. The superfan piece is this. If you can get 1,000 fans, we call them super fans, who can spend $100 with you a year, you made $100,000. I'm going to say that again. You got music, you got merchandise gear, or you got a business or services or whatever you got. If you can get 1,000 super fans, subscribers, followers, whatever, it's beyond just a follower. We're talking about a super fan who believe in you and want to support you because you are your authentic self and they relate to you. That's possible. But imagine this, you're an artist and your music is fire. And now you've been having to go through the streaming services and you get no money. Now you got your own platform that you can sell direct to your fans. So now let's say hypothetically you get 10,000 super fans. Kendrick knows how to do this. He's working it very well. I'm sure Drake knows how to work this very well. Most of you hip hop artists and independent, you already know how to work this very well. Chance the Rapper and quite a few others, right? So you get 10,000 super fans. They spend $100 with you on a year. You got $1 million. You say you want to make $1 million? We just now gave you the blueprint, right? It's one thing to have 50,000, 100,000, 300,000, 500,000 followers, but are they spending money with you as your super fans? If they are not, you need to self-assess, and number two, self-evaluate, reevaluate how you're messaging and how you're reaching out to these folks and how you can then utilize them to build your own platform and your own business, because that's what we're talking about here today. Building your own platform, your own business, and monetization for your own music, productions, business, service, whatever it is that you do. All game is the same when it relates to this. So let's analyze this in number 14. So if we analyze number 14, we're saying check your programs. Check out what works. What doesn't work, modify it. Are you reaching your customers? Is your messaging clear? You are the CEO of your life. You are the CEO of your brand, and you are the CEO of everything that you're working on, from a music, career, business, service, merchandise, whatever it is. You are the CEO of your own life. Now you have the tools of which you can build upon. With this hot 15 tracks we just gave you, that you can build upon this list. Self-assess yourself, right? What did we talk about, right? We talked about know that you're gifted by God. You got to believe in yourself, self-assessment. Don't believe the hype. Preparation meets opportunity, goal setting, the plan itself and the steps to get there, the taking the action, and then setting up your platform. So you want to be a hip hop artist, executive entrepreneur, or superstar, you got to have your own platform. The less you have to run your money through someone else's hands, the more profitable you'll be. And I'll leave one last message from you. Pay your taxes, okay? And if you don't know how, make sure you get you a tax expert so you won't have no problems later. Because selling it out the trunk, let me tell you, was hot. It was a whole lot of cash, yo. And we was young, right? But you learn you got to pay your taxes when you're making that money. So on behalf of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, Sir J.T. Thompson, Renaissance Equity Ventures, Hip Hop Economic Development, the return of the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards, Municipal Data and Power, and all the other things we got coming, we just want you to understand you have an opportunity to not only master yourself, master your craft, master your brand, master your platform, and then you can be socio-economic empowerment and ownership. That's the Harlem Master Class from the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. Peace, love, blessings, and respect. Now, let's flip some pics and let you see some of the history that we was talking about. President Bill Clinton, what can I tell you? Big love and respect. Back in the day, that was in like 94, something like that. Oh, yeah, that's when we first was launching. We did that. We launched that when we launched the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards, bringing it back in 97. No doubt, we were doing it, ready to roll. Run DMC inducted at the first ever Hip Hop Hall of Fame Award show on BET and the national syndication. Rest in peace to Jam Master Jay, one of my original board members. And as you can see, Reverend Run just started preaching back then. Big love to DMC. Oh, yeah. What's up, y'all? Y'all know who that is, right? I ain't even got to say nothing. Y'all already know. Big love and respect, everybody. Peace and blessings. Me, myself, and I. Harlem Week, y'all. So we got to say big shout out to the whole Harlem family. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame, we've been a co-producer for Harlem Week for 10 years now. And we've been producing the Harlem Hip Hop Festival, but now we're about to branch up and do even more and step our game up to be a benefit and blessing to not only Harlem Week, but expand the Harlem brand locally, nationally, and internationally. Big love. CL Smooth got the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Legacy Award at that time. I told you I went to the military. I just wanted you to know it's real talk. So you can imagine 17 years old in the Army after coming out of playing football and basketball at Manual Arts. and then rolling that right into a college career to overseas. Y'all already know what time it is. Big respect. Salute to all my fellow veterans. Roxanne Shante, our girl, the host of the first bringing the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards back in the 2010s. That was us right now, pivoting up, y'all, getting ready to make that announcement. Things getting ready to fly off the handle in the 2010s, y'all. Oh, yes. NASDAQ, yo. We got a big respect to Renaissance Equity Ventures. We're working on a major fund right now for the company and our expansion into all types of housing and hospitality, entertainment. NASDAQ, that's where all of it starts, yo. We want to make sure that we let you know. Build yourself up so you can go to that next level, Wall Street. I talked about the LA Gang Truce. This was the 20th anniversary reunion shirt. Nobody can stop this war but us. And you can see right there why it's possible. Big love and respect to all the Bloods and the Crips who actually come together, not just for peace, but actually want to see their communities change and bring economic development, and not just gang banging and gang violence, but education and empowerment and home ownership for everyone. I also told you about back in the day when we launched Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards. You see a young Tyrese, right? And MC Knowledge back in the day. That was us at the First AME Church back in 1993. Just trying to give you an idea how the gang was moving. When I told you the story, now you're seeing some artifacts from that time period. Tyrese just did the Coca-Cola commercial. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what we were really about, where we come from, and how we got here. But more importantly, where you are, self-assessment, and where you can go. That's what I'm talking about. Ooh, I see a question pop up. How did being bi-coastal shape your business acumen? Man, that is a phenomenal question. So I think the bi-coastal gave me the best of both worlds. And you got to understand, Cali is big, right? So being in LA and then also being in the Bay, it's like two separate worlds, right? So, and then migrating also into Atlanta area, seeing how the Atlanta flow is. Being bi-coastal helps because now you get to understand that your local area is not all that there is. I know people who lived in LA who never been to the beach or never been to Century City, right? Same thing in Oakland, who might not have never been to Frisco, or in New York. Have you visited all five? Do you know how beautiful New York as a state is? All the parks and all the recreational areas. And then same thing for Atlanta. So how did the bi-coastal piece help shape the business acumen? One, understanding the market, understanding the people, understanding the media and the situation that were going on at the time, and the mass manipulation of the people, and how we had to find a way to find our brand's niche in the midst of all that chaos. Yeah, it shaped us totally. What do you think of hip hop now? Oh, Matt, that's a great question. So I say people would talk about this Kendrick Lamar and Drake situation, and they would say, oh man, here we go again. I actually think it was a blessing in disguise in certain aspects, not where it is now, but from the beginning, because I've seen people now making records that are actually utilizing real lyricals, metaphors, telling stories, and not just talking about this is what it is, reality rap, I'm here, I'm there, I'm this, I got this, I got that, but telling stories to educate the young people of how they can actually see their situations and rise up out of those situations. Because, Slick Rick told stories, you know what I mean? Dana Day told stories. A lot of folks told real stories, but those stories paved the way for us. Tupac, keep your head up. Tupac's music itself was one of my biggest inspirations, right? And I'm someone who also worked with Biggie's people. Shout out to Mark Pitts at Capitol Records, Wayne Barrow from Bystorm Entertainment. We had our office with them producing the stuff that we did with the Black College Step shows and things at that championship, because the bi-coastal stuff was BS. We were all young African-American aspiring entrepreneurs and executives coming together for a bigger purpose that was bigger than us. That's what's up. Who do you think is the most influential hip hop artist ever? Who are your top five? Well, being the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, guys, girls out there, I'm not going to give you a top five because I am neutral and I don't want anybody to think I'm biased for the Hip Hop Hall of Fame and this quid pro quo. In other words, because I like you, you're in, and this, that, and the other. The Hip Hop Hall of Fame ain't like that. Hip Hop Hall of Fame is mi casa, is your casa. This is our culture. And like I talked about protecting our culture, we have to protect our culture and all of our treasures, right? And so you asked me who was influential to me, though. Of course, Tupac was inspirational to me, very inspirational. And when I hear people take shots at Tupac and what he was, this, that, and the other, I knew Tupac before Death Row. So all that stuff's irrelevant to me. Like I told you about knowing yourself. See, I knew the man himself. We had conversations. So when Tupac talked about certain things in the community, I remember Tupac said something like this. He's like, yo, we want the police. We up here living with the criminal. Our people need the police too, right? So he go from what you would say, oh, he shot at the police. He did this, that, and the other. He's street. No, he was a well 360-rounded individual, right? And guys like him and certain folks that I know, a lot of folks were before their time. You know what I mean? So Tupac, of course, Jay, of course, Queen Latifah, of course. I mean, you got to give the women props. What about conscious rappers, Tribe and them, right? What about even Common? You know, I'm a NWA West Coast guy. At the same time, I'm a Brooklyn-born Queens Harlem guy. What's up? You know, to the Mastodon Committee. You know what I mean? What's up to, you know, Red Alert? What's up to them DJs, man? Mr. Magic. I mean, I'm well-rounded in hip-hop. I love the Cold Crush Brothers, right? I love the Fantastic Five, right? I love all the original stuff out of Harlem. Are you kidding? Treacherous 3, Fearless 4. I mean, my gosh, Dougie Fresh, Rob Bass, shout out to everybody. The Crash Crew, are you kidding me? We represent Harlem, yo. Well, peace and blessings to everyone. We give big love and respect to you out there. Peace and blessings to your family. Remember, the next level of this whole game is socioeconomic empowerment and ownership. That's what the Hip Hop Hall of Fame is about. We want to let you know the next 50 is about pushing an agenda for hip hop economic development in all of our urban communities to now increase. Not buying the block. How about really rebuilding those communities? Not just us passing out food. How about employing our people and empowering our people so they could take care of themselves and buy homes to sustain themselves? That's what it's about, everybody. Peace and blessings. Sir JT, Hip Hop Hall of Fame, Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards, the original creator and executive producer of the first ever Hip Hop Hall of Fame Award show, broadcast on BET Network. Check us out. Peace and blessings.